Hello, design enthusiasts, and welcome back to a conversation about design, the official podcast of Experience House. As you know, I'm Amit Patel. I'm the creative director here and your host of this podcast series. And today I'm truly excited to be having a conversation with somebody who's helping to shape the design teams of the future. Jack Barber is the founder of Yet to Be, a design recruitment agency specializing in senior hires across various design industries and disciplines. With a decade of experience, Jack has been instrumental in connecting global tech companies such as Meta with top tier design talent, earning a ton of respect along the way from industry leaders for his professionalism and deep understanding of the design field. And we had the pleasure of having Jack speak at our AI summit late last year. Jack, welcome to a conversation about design.
Thank you so much, Amir. That was a fantastic introduction. I really appreciate the kind words. Thanks for having me at your AI Design Summit last year. It was awesome. And I'm really pleased to be here speaking with you today.
Perfect. Yeah, and your talk just resonated so well with everyone. It was engaging. It had humor. It was just and you were sharing so much of the research you've been doing. Where I kind of want to start is just tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously we've just learned about kind of where you are now, but just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you grew up, what you've studied, kind of how did this path start?
Yeah, awesome. So I'm originally from Essex, if we go way back. I guess from like a young age, I've always been quite an outgoing person, always loved meeting people, having conversations. And I guess looking further down my career, that's potentially what led me into the world of recruitment. I went to uni in Birmingham, and I don't know if you can see behind me, but I have some vinyl decks there. I got into music and was an event promoter, but I realized very quickly that DJing and events weren't going to make me any money. And so I had to figure out a career path that suited my skills. And so I found out that you could help people get jobs. There was this thing called recruitment where you could speak to people and connect them with companies and help them get jobs. And I thought this would suit me very well. And so I moved into recruitment, first starting out in the world of finance and accountancy. And I realized very quickly that this was a job that I was good at, but an area that I wasn't very interested in. And so then I found out that you could do creative and design recruitment. And I was like, wow, this really fits my passion and interests. And so I started off at an agency called Salt. Worked there for, I think, 3 or 4 years, kind of climbing the ladder in agency recruitment. Did a bunch of different recruitment across all sorts of different disciplines of design, but probably with a large focus on user experience and product design. And then at that point, I got an email from Meta to come and join them. And I thought to myself, if I turn down this opportunity, my mum's going to kill me. So I had to at least take the interview. Fortunately for me, I ended up getting the job. So I joined their international design recruitment team and spent just under 2 years there, hiring largely product designers for Reality Labs, WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram. And actually, I was kind of instrumental in hiring a lot of the specialist designers in the kind of AR and VR space for Reality Labs as well. So I kind of built up some good specialist knowledge in those kind of new and innovative areas for Meta. Leading on to where I'm at now, I've always had a kind of drive from being, an events promoter back in the day through to now of kind of being an entrepreneur and running my own business. I love creating brands. I love the independence that running your own business can give you. And so I decided to leave Meta and finally go my own way and set up Yet to Be. And that's where I'm at now.
Nice. Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that you really enjoy kind of the brand building. I saw a post, I think you had put on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago where you thanked the designer who's been working on your branding. And it looks great. And I enjoyed that post and looking through the website as well. So well done on shaping that.
I really appreciate that. Shout out to Manon Prost. Yeah. She was the designer that worked on the brand. She's now running her own boutique branding agency called Prostwork. And she's just phenomenal. So anyone out there looking for an amazing brand designer, I'd highly recommend her.
Cool. We'll make sure we're add her link awesome. When we share this out as well. So just want to talk a little bit about Meta, and then I know we'll focus more on yet to be. But you mentioned your mom would kill you if you
Yeah.
didn't take this role. Just tell us a little bit about what went into deciding that Meta was going to be a place you wanted to work. Obviously, it's a
Yeah,
one of the
absolutely.
biggest brands out there. I think just for our audience to understand, what was it like while you were there?
Yeah, so in terms of the decision making process, actually, the beginning of the year when they reached out to me, I was planning on setting up this business that I'm running now. I wanted to run my own design recruitment agency. And actually, the company at the time I was working for, they really needed me. We were very busy. So I kind of uh, a little bit got convinced, but also wanted to sort of stay a little bit longer and help them. And
Hmm.
that's when Meta reached out. And actually, when they reached out, I realized, wow, this is such a fantastic opportunity to learn how design hiring is done at a company that hires thousands of designers. Most of the companies that I work for, they have fairly small design teams, but this is a company that hires not only the best designers in the world, but
Hmm.
absolutely thousands of them across pretty much every discipline. And I thought, if I'm going to set up my own design recruitment agency, this is the kind of final notch in my belt that will both give me internal talent acquisition experience, but also hiring at a very high level. And so, in terms of the actual experience, I was part of a team where you kind of you split recruiters into two main sections. You have the recruiters, and then you have sourcers. And then some of us, we would do both of those roles. So I was actually a kind of 360 recruiter where I'd both work with the leaders within the business, identifying the kind of talent that they wanted to hire. But then I would also actually go out to market and find those people as well. So I was very, very busy.
Hmm.
Um, Part of the job of an internal recruiter is about actually attracting talent, building talent processes, improving the interview processes. And actually, one of the things at Meta that really stood out was the candidate experience.
Right.
So at every stage of the process, we'd be having a kind of a pre prep interview call with the candidates. And these weren't just a few pointers. These were kind of, we'd give people presentations and tips and try to advise them on how they could, really have success in these interview processes. As well as that, some of the things that stood out were things like accessibility. So, no matter what your background, perhaps you have a disability, Meta would provide different services to support you throughout the interview process. So that was something that was
Right.
really eye opening and fantastic for me as well. And then just working really closely with the leaders to identify the very top talent around the world because of
Hmm.
obviously Meta's status as
Yeah.
this kind of global tech company. We were able to hire people from pretty much any country in the world, and that was really fascinating too.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's probably one of the biggest companies or brands that are out there, and obviously 2.5 billion users, so people are very aware of it. So it's fascinating to kind of get the inside glimpse that you've just shared. So now stepping forward,
Mm.
obviously there was some kind of point where you decided, actually, I need to start thinking about my own thing. Did that happen? Was that in your mind before Meta? Did it happen as a result of being at Meta? Talk us through kind of what became the trigger for you to say, okay, I'm going to start my own thing
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. So as I say, when Meta reached out, I was already thinking about setting this business up.
Hmm.
But then having Meta on my kind of CV, if you like, and gaining that experience, I really knew that this was the perfect opportunity for me to actually do that. And so, yeah, about 20 months ago now, so nearly coming into our second year as a business, I finally plucked up the courage
Yeah.
to go on this journey. A funny story. So, around the same time that I set up this business, I was having a bit of a dilemma. And I thought to myself, you've always been passionate about food. Why don't you just go and become a chef?
Right.
Which sounds absolutely insane, right? So I set up this company. I created the domain name. I created the limited company, and at the same time, I decided to reach out to the HR team at Claridge's Hotel, which is one of the most famous hotels in the world.
Hmm.
And I knew they had a Michelin star kitchen. And anyway, fast forward a few weeks, and I'm doing an apprenticeship chef course in Claridge's. So that's kind of how my brain works. I'm, a little bit ADHD in that sense. Definitely undiagnosed, but with a lot of the symptoms.
Right.
I was doing this chef apprenticeship, and after about 2 weeks of both doing the chef apprenticeship and running the business, fortunately for me, started to really take off. And through some of that success and through that initial experience, I realized that this was what I wanted to do. And it really solidified, okay, you're in the right place. I think, like a lot of people that set up a business, you have that initial imposter syndrome. But yeah, after I started to see some of the success come through and it kind of validated what I was doing, I realized that I was doing the right thing, and that this is an area that I'm really, really passionate about. And I'm really grateful that I've stayed the course, because yeah, things are going really well now.
Can you tell us, was there a particular moment where you felt, you know what, I'm absolutely doing the right thing, or this is going to be a true success? Was there a moment where you just kind of felt, wow, this is just amazing?
Yeah, well, honestly, probably the first placement that I made. When you start a recruitment business, you typically won't make your first placement within the first few months. You've got to establish a brand, a client base. Then when you make a placement, recruiters don't get paid until the first day of the candidate starting.
Right.
And then, of course, there's payment terms. So there is a lot of anxiety about, will I be able to, make this work with the runway of cash that I've got? And so for me, when I made that first placement, which was a head of design placement, that was when I realized that I was in the right place, and that, thank God, all of my savings weren't going to run out. And I think once I knew that there was money coming into the business and that I'd successfully been able to place a head of design with ease, create a great relationship with that client, and also received amazing feedback, I was like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. The imposter syndrome then started to fade a little bit, and I realized that, no, I am capable of doing this. I've done it my whole career. And you can go the whole way now. So yeah, I think that first placement was where it kind of validated what I was doing.
Great. And you also mentioned earlier about imposter syndrome, and even Experience House, 7 years old now, or coming, I think this year will be 8. I don't think that necessarily disappears, because obviously you're growing and you're going to be in different rooms with different people, and that imposter syndrome can still kick in. Just want to step back to that a little bit. And, obviously there are other recruitment agencies out there. What would you say in terms of your approach, and when you were looking to build, yet to be, what would you say is a differentiator for you?
Yeah, so I think you touched on some good points there. Firstly, that the imposter syndrome thing doesn't go. I admire people that are able to just be super confident and have that self-belief. I definitely have some of that, but I think I'm only human as well. And so I have to tell myself and teach myself to not compare too often, and to stay on my own path, set my own goals. And the more we compare to others, actually, the more detrimental that can be. And on that, there's some fantastic design recruiters out there. I think 5 years ago, there was very few specialist design recruitment agencies out there. And now what we have is a handful of really specialized design recruitment agencies, and then a bunch of agencies that do both product, design, engineering, etc. So the choice now for companies is very, very broad. You can choose between a bunch of fantastic options. And I know quite a few of the founders out there. And I would say that some of them are awesome. They are really, really great. So what makes me unique as a business, the actual reality of it is, when you're comparing recruitment agencies that are of a similar size, that offer similar services, the main things that will differentiate those businesses are the actual individuals that run those businesses. That's personally what I believe. I think for me, the fact that I have both the internal recruitment experience at a kind of organization like Meta, of building processes, of working with very, very senior people, and attracting talent at the highest level, I think that's definitely a kind of string to my bow that not all agency recruiters have. But I think, as well as that, some of the specialist knowledge that we try to bring. So we do all sorts of different design recruitment, but I think the key differentiator is that I also offer a lot of knowledge and specialist expertise in things like XR design, for example. I've helped to build the Reality Labs team at Meta, and have hired everything from kind of VFX artists to technical artists to 3D designers, and spatial computing experts. And I think these are design roles that not all of my competitors have recruited for. On that as well, I think we're trying to stay ahead of the curve with things like AI. So instead of actually just going on like I kind of know a lot about this stuff, I've actually set it upon myself to do research in the area, which is obviously how I ended up kind of doing the talk at AI Design Summit for Experience House. So I reached out to over 50 design leaders in AI, and actually ended up speaking with some of the best design leaders in the space around the world. For example, the leader of AI design for IBM globally in San Francisco, and one of the AI design leaders over at Frog, and people at Microsoft and DeepMind, and countless different organizations. And I actually interviewed those people to stay ahead of the curve and find out how design industry is changing and how this relates to my job as a recruiter. What skills do I need to be looking out for? How can we assess candidates and make sure that they're going into the right roles? And what's around the corner? So I think, coming back to my initial point, I think I'm definitely the driving force that would potentially differentiate my business. We do offer a lot of similar things to other design recruitment agencies, but I think my passion and my knowledge, and hopefully my sort of ability to recruit designers for your organization would be a differentiator.
When I asked the question, I was like, and you started out, I was like, okay, I know exactly where I want to take this. And you took it exactly there. And I think a big differentiator in terms of definitely what I've seen is exactly what you mentioned, that thorough research that took. How long did that research take, the 50 conversations?
It was about three months.
Okay. Yeah. And I think, I've not really seen anyone kind of go to that level to kind of, and again, like you shared it at our summit. And I think the passion and enthusiasm to go and the ability to go out and have those conversations is a great differentiator, because you're hearing from the ground. You're hearing from the people that are making some of the critical decisions in terms of building those teams as well. So yeah, I think that's a massive differentiator for you. And of course builds that credibility that's so important as well. So looking at that research, can you tell us a little bit about what's kind of what are you thinking is going to happen in the next couple of years in terms of some of the trends, or your forecasts in terms of like what the design team of the future might look like?
Yeah, so I think one of the first things to mention is that user-centered design will always be the bedrock of what we do in this industry. It's all about understanding users, leading with empathy, and solving user problems. I think regardless of what technology comes in, that will still remain the bedrock. And actually all of the design leaders that I spoke with agreed with that. However, that said, technology is making some big changes in the industry. I think one of the fundamental things that we're seeing in the adoption of AI is a move from a kind of deterministic, linear system to a much more dynamic, probabilistic system. Lots of companies now will be introducing kind of AI agents and agentic systems, which are a lot more dynamic. And this means that the usual design paths or user journeys that designers have designed for the last decade will be changing. They will be becoming more dynamic. And I think that requires a handful of different skills and creates nuances that are going to pose new challenges to designers in ways that there weren't before. I think when you look at an agentic system versus like a more of a deterministic system, you could almost compare it to like a game, right? It's a complex system with not only a user involved in a kind of linear journey, but actually the system itself becomes a kind of co-creator and collaborator within that world. And so designers are going to have to think about that. And so skills such as systems design and systems thinking are going to be really critical.
Yeah.
I think a big trend at the moment that we are seeing is an increased demand for technical skills amongst product designers. And this one can sometimes get people's backs up. It can be a little bit controversial. And I think the word technical literacy is better than technical skills, because what I'm not looking for when I'm hiring a designer is a coder. I don't want an engineer. I want a designer. And I think design is all about translating user needs, translating technology into user needs and experiences, right? An engineer is more focused around the technology side. However, when systems and technology becomes more complex, I think designers that have a literacy, i.e. an understanding in the platforms, the foundations, and the technologies, they're going to have a leg up on their peers. So I think technical literacy and understanding is going to be really key. Things like interaction design as well. As I say, these kind of technologies and systems are becoming more complex, which means that we can, have different user journeys and different outputs. And I think interaction designers are going to play a key role in that too. There's a whole bunch on the horizon, which I think is really, really exciting. That said, I don't think we're going to see a world in 10 years where there aren't sales websites to go to. I don't think we're going to see a world where people that are passionate about things like typography are just going to disappear. I think the changes will come, but I don't think they're going to be as drastic as some people might think.
Right. And, if you were to kind of, I think you've highlighted some of the exact points that we've been kind of pushing for our students to kind of pick on, is particularly systems design. I think that's becoming, is going to become much more important moving forward, along with kind of cross-cultural empathy, because you're building platforms now, or companies are building platforms now that could be built in London, but are going to be used in Toronto or Tokyo or Stockholm. And so being able to understand how people in different cultures are going to be using your product becomes even more key, not just local here in London as well. Right?
Yeah, that's so key. One of the key things around that is the understanding of user behavior, right? And we know around some of the ethical issues that things like AI can pose. So understanding the psychological background to that and understanding user behavior. For example, a lot of people rely on or have overconfidence in agentic systems, and user experience designers are those people that should advocate for the user and design technologies and experiences that make sure that those overconfidences don't end up in bad outcomes for users. So I think ethics is really important. Understanding user behavior and having empathy for users is going to be really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We touch a lot about that on our Designing AI Experiences course at Experience House, and I almost feel like every product designer should take it. Just not necessarily that like you said, some of the other kind of platforms and needs are still going to exist, but we're very much moving into this world where this AI stuff's not going anywhere, and you have to have this level of understanding just to stay relevant.
The words that you guys mentioned at the beginning of the AI Design Summit, it was adaptability, right?
So we mentioned curiosity, experimentation, and adaptability. I think those were the three words that I'd kind of mentioned as the kind of the pillar for the day.
I think those three words really encapsulate a lot of what I'm trying to say, and actually really tied so well into the presentation that I did. That adaptability is going to be key. Design isn't going to change, but it is going to require adaptability. And I think the people, again, going back to the kind of technical literacy, people that are curious and want to learn things on a daily basis, they're going to, stay ahead of the curve. I think the world is moving so quickly now. We know that AI compute power is like doubling every 6 months. And so people that are going to have that kind of continuous learning approach, I think they're going to be really successful.
Yesterday, just on that point, yesterday we put out a message on our Slack internal kind of Experience House community Slack channel, just asking kind of like what everyone's excited about kind of or working on for this year. and quite a few people mentioned AI agents and just kind of learning about it, building.
Mm.
It's something that I definitely want to go out and just start kind of figuring out how I can improve certain workflow with an AI agent. And I think, like you said, I completely agree that curiosity is going to be the differentiator now for
Yeah.
many people moving forward.
Yeah.
So getting kind of back to yet to be, what is your vision over the next couple of years? It's such an exciting space to be in at the moment. Kind of what would success look like in the next couple of years for you?
Yeah, so I think first of all you have to again not compare yourself to others and understand what do you want out of a business. And for me, that looks like organic growth and not rushing things too quickly. I've been working at recruitment companies and I've seen recruitment companies hire really quickly, and then as soon as the market dips, they have to let go of all of their staff. And I think for me, the vision would be to have a really small, tight knit team that even in down market times can still be really, really successful and not have to kind of let go of people. So I think slow organic growth is going to be really important. This year, one of the key things that I want to continue to build on is our specialist knowledge in areas such as AI and the XR design world. So focusing on the kind of new growth of AR and VR computing power and really kind of specializing in those areas. I think events as well is something that we want to maybe get involved with a little bit more. There's definitely, I think, a bigger desire for community, as we've seen with obviously what you guys are doing at Experience House. You sold out completely. I think I don't want to do events for the financial gain, but what I do want to do is meet people more face to face, offer events which can support people in their careers, and also ones where we can just have fun and experience that connection in person as well. Success for me over the next few years looks like slow organic growth, maintaining our brand and position in the market, and just ultimately doing a good job for clients, really.
Yeah, amazing. And I think, listen, we really enjoyed having you at our summit. We've got a few more things planned. We're always looking to do events, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot more collaboration between us, hopefully in 2025. And I think what you've mentioned today will be so useful for our audience, who a lot of this is aimed at, of course, our designers, our students, and our alumni, but also the wider community as well. And it's so important to kind of hear from your view. You're working with companies that are building teams, shaping kind of the design teams of the future. So to hear your insights and all of this is super valuable. And I completely agree with that curiosity thing. I think is absolutely so important as a skill set moving forward as well.
Definitely.
So just in closing, Jack, where can people kind of find out more about what you're doing? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so feel free to search me out on LinkedIn, Jack Barber. If you search me,
we'll share out the links, so that's all
yeah,
good.
you should find me. Also, check out our website, yettobe.co. If you want to connect with me directly, either connect with me on LinkedIn or there's a contact form via our website. Stay in touch with me for content around design recruitment trends and hopefully advice and support for the design community, and also potentially some upcoming events as well. Those are the kind of main ways to connect and stay in touch.
Perfect. And our next conference is around the future of design education. So we'll have a chat and see how we can get you involved.
That'd be awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just really passionate about being part of the design community. I think recruiters have often seen themselves as outside of the community that they serve, and for me, it's the total opposite. I'm a creative person. I love design, and I definitely see myself as someone who, by virtue of being a recruiter, is a designer of some sorts. We design teams, maybe not products, but so I really see myself as part of the community, and if there's any way I can be involved in any initiatives where it's actually involved in helping people in their careers or just being part of something fun and engaging, then I'm all for it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jack. And yeah, we look forward to kind of seeing what you do with Yet to Be over the coming years.
Awesome. Thanks, Amit. Right.